it's just mind blowing because when I was digging in, I was like, Debbie, like, you got to please share, like, how did you get started? Who are you? And all that good stuff. Because I looked up 24 years at MEO. And how did you get started in all of this?
Well, actually, I grew up on Oahu. My father was in the Navy, so I moved to Hawaii when I was 9. So I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, and then I moved to Maui in my early 20s with some friends. And I had been working in retail in Oahu, so I went in and I applied at Liberty House.
Oh, okay.
And I walked in their door, the old days, the old Liberty House, and they hired me and said, "Can you start tonight?" So I said, "Okay." And I worked for them for 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah. So they...
This was in Oahu?
No, this was on Maui.
Oh, the Maui Liberty House.
Ka'ahumanu,
wow, no kidding.
So I worked about 10 years at Ka'ahumanu, and then I transferred to the resorts, and I was a manager out at the Whalers Village store. They used to have a Liberty House out there, and I was working there and supporting Whalers Village and some of the resort shops. There were a lot of resort shops and hotels back then. And then a position opened up back at Ka'ahumanu, and I transferred back, and I was a manager of cosmetics and jewelry. And then I was married, I had a little baby, and I really liked HR, and they had an opportunity to go into the HR department, but you would start in the bottom, basically. So I took a huge cut in pay, and I went in and I was a clerk.
Wow.
And it was back in the days when we had these time clocks on the wall that you had to punch. And then my job was to code it on the bottom so that the payroll people knew where to code it.
Dang.
I scheduled interviews, whatever, all the support stuff. And then Liberty House was pretty progressive. They were very good about grooming their internal talent. And so they created a training program for people interested in careers in HR. So I participated in that and basically got all the components needed. And then I became the assistant director, or they called it personnel manager back then. So I was the assistant personnel manager for the store. And then we were also supporting all the resort shops at that time because the company started changing their makeup. And so I did that. So I worked in HR about 10 years. And then there was a job posted at MEO for an HR manager. And my sister-in-law said, there's this thing, back then, no internet.
Right.
So she said, there's this job at MEO, I think it'd be perfect for you. And it's an HR manager. So I said, I didn't honestly even know what MEO was. So, and you couldn't go online and Google it. So you had to go ask around. I do remember seeing the little small buses with MEO,
MEO buses,
and taking the kids, so I kind of knew a little bit. So I went to an interview and it was still dark outside because Gladys Bisa was the executive director at the time. And she ended up going on to be a council member and council chair and did a lot of things. So she interviewed me. And I didn't get a call for a couple of weeks. So I thought, man, they're not going to hire me. And I got a call and they offered me the job. So I said, okay. So I was an HR officer for the MEO, kind of grew their HR department. They were kind of in a transition period where they had just received a lot of big federal grants the year I got hired, which was in 2000. And so they really wanted to, Gladys wanted to create more structure. And so because I came from a corporate HR system, I knew what it looked like. What I didn't realize is that I was now corporate. So I didn't have anybody to call and ask questions to. So I got involved in SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, so that I had a good support system. And then I also worked with a labor attorney that we had worked with at Liberty House on Oahu, and really helped build up the whole HR systems at MEO.
Wow.
And then after about 10 years of that, I was asked to apply for the chief operating officer, which is like the number 2 person. And so oversees all the programs. And so I did that. I got a national certification in, it's called results-oriented management accountability training. And so really teaches you about being outcome driven and how using data to analyze what you're doing and not just be so service oriented. Not that services aren't important, but you want services to make some kind of change, right? Just like what you do in fitness, right? And so so I did that. And then the CEO at the time was going to retire, and she said, you know, they want you to take over. I was like, I don't want to do that. So I went home and talked to my husband. He's like, well, if you don't do it, they're going to bring somebody in new. You're going to have to train them anyway, so why wouldn't you do it? And I was like, what if I'm not good at it?
Wow.
And so I did, and it's been a blessing. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have some tremendously talented staff who are very, very dedicated. I mean, really believe in the mission. You know, it's a place where you go to work and you feel good every day. Like you feel this warmth of the people that work there. It's very genuine, and that makes it easy.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part is dealing with politics and federal regulations, and you know, there's a lot of hoops to go through. So we have so many funded programs, and each program has its own set of rules about what you can and cannot do, and how you report it, and how you comply. And so it's a lot of balls in the air all at once. But when you go out and you talk to people and you see the impact that the programs or the services make on, you know, how they affect their lives, it makes it all worth it.
Wow. And that was 14 years ago? So 2000?
I've been a CEO from about 7 years now. Actually, this month.
That's
7 years.
Oh my goodness.
But 24 years in total. So quite a journey.
What a journey.